because they're swimming pool offices.
But I think you still have people.
That's a business I never thought was
They went after Butch, they went after Harry.
You ready, David?
So they went after people that
They are. They're doing well.
Everyone, if we could sit down and make sure all your electronic devices are put on silent and turned off, if you would, because they do mess up with our recording equipment. If we could have a roll call, Madam Clerk, to establish quorum, please, ma'am.
Susan Harman.
Here.
Bob Thomas.
Here.
Nikki Schneider. Here. Harry Meyer.
Here.
Melissa Greene.
Here.
Terry McClung.
I am here.
We have 6.
All right, would stand and pledge allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Get a motion to approve the agenda? So moved.
Second.
All right. Additions, corrections? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor of the agenda as submitted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor of the minutes as submitted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I recuse because I wasn't here.
Okay. 5-1. As far as our commissions go, we have a nomination from the CAPC for Debbie Ray to fill the vacant position number 1.
I'll make a motion to approve Debbie Ray for position 1 CAPC.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have Drexy Rogers in position 3 and Stephen Foster in position 6. But both of their positions are up for new application for applications. They're both serving on the Parks Commission as right now. But yes, ma'am. Ms. Schneider?
I make a motion that we re-up both of them.
One at a time, babe.
Okay. One at a time. I make a motion that we re-accept Draxi.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Get a motion for Stephen Foster.
I make a motion that we re-accept Stephen Foster.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Tonight we have a presentation on Firewise, and Shane is going to start us off, I believe, with that, from the fire department.
For those of you that don't know me, I know most of you, but my name is Shane Stanley. I'm a captain with the EUREKA Springs Fire Department. And we've got some members of the Forestry Commission with us today. They're going to discuss what they call a Firewise program. This is a program that's been going on for a while. We've been involved with it for several years now. It's about creating defensible spaces and making things a little bit safer as far as structures that may be threatened by wildland fires, brush fires, and such. So I've got Travis Hale from the Forestry Commission who's going to talk a little bit more about this, guys.
Thank y'all very much for having us tonight. We're glad to be here. As Shane mentioned, my name is Travis Hale. I'm with the Arkansas Forestry Commission. I'm the Firewise coordinator for the state of Arkansas with the Forestry Commission. The program that we run, I'm going to talk to you about, is the Firewise program. It is a national program. So EUREKA Springs has nationally been recognized as a Firewise USA site. So it's in 42 states across the country. In Arkansas, we run it through the Forestry Commission. Leslie Foster is the Public Information Specialist. She and I cover the entire state. So we're all over the place with this program. Our primary audience and our primary partners with this program is the fire department. The fire department receives grant money for doing this program. They're usually the ones that are out, boots on the ground, doing the work, talking to the local community, because they are in the community and they know the folks out there. So they're the ones who are usually out there doing most of that stuff. We get them all the information they need. Firewise is a fire prevention program initiative for the WUI, or the Wildland Urban Interface, if you're writing that down, WUI. So anytime a home intermingles with the woods or the grass, that is considered what is the Wildland Urban Interface. Eureka Springs is covered in that. Most of the state of Arkansas is covered in that. We pretty well all live in what is called the Wildland Urban Interface. So this program looks at homeowners doing mitigation projects as far as reducing fuel around their homes. So it's actually doing some actual work. And then the other side of it is the educational side, where we talk to homeowners about things they can do to make their homes safer from wildfire. We have brochures, pamphlets, things we pass out. Most of the time, the fire department will hold some kind of open house, like some of the fire departments do, a trunk or treat, a fish fry, just a wide variety of things across the state that the folks do out there. And when they have these events, they pass this literature out and they talk to the homeowners about some of that stuff. So it's a really good initiative program for that. The grant monies that is involved, the fire departments initially get grant money. Eureka Springs got it here to buy some equipment out there. And then every year after that, if they keep their renewal going, they can go along and get a $500 grant, which is fixing to be up to a $1,000 grant, and they can use that money to pay for these projects that they're doing. So that's what that money, grant money, helps do, is fund those mitigation projects. We were talking before the meeting, they're talking about doing a couple of projects around different buildings and stuff around town. So the cleanup and all that, that's what a lot of that goes to. When they have their educational day, whatever day that is, that money will help to pay to fund some of that to educate the homeowners out there. So it's kind of a twofold effect. It's education and mitigation. That's the two key things that we're looking to do. We're trying to get homeowners to mitigate, reduce fuel around their homes. We're trying to educate them how to do that. So there's a lot of advantages to that. It lowers ISO ratings. In the fire departments, if they're applying for federal grants, usually always ask, are you a Firewise USA community? So it also helps with that. The Forestry Commission, we also give a VFA grant, and if the community is a Firewise community, you get a better chance of getting that VFA grant, which is like a $3,300 valued kit of wildland firefighting tools. So there's a lot of advantages to it. Great program. Fuel reduction, education, a lot of good things out there that it helps with the community with. So that's kind of Firewise in a brief little summary there. There's a lot more I could expound on and talk to y'all about. But if y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer any questions that y'all have about it now.
Anyone have any questions?
We're pretty good with fire and woods.
Ma'am?
We're pretty good with fire and
Well,
woods.
good. That's what we like. That makes our jobs easier.
Is Darrell Bohannon in charge?
This guy right here is in charge.
I'm just kidding.
I took Bo's place.
You did?
I know Bo really well. I've been around him for a long time.
I knew he was retired. I was just kidding.
Yeah.
Susan?
So,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so how long has Eureka Springs been in the program?
I believe it was 05 or... Yeah.
Okay.
So for quite a while.
10, 13.
It pretty well started about the inception of Firewise. Eureka Springs jumped in. Yeah,
I think they were one of the first in the state.
probably so. Because it started in the state of Arkansas around 04, 05. They were one of the first ones.
We've had several projects that we have done with this to keep getting these grants to make the Humane Society, the animal shelter.
You want to come up? Yeah.
As far as some of the local things that we've done, the animal shelter out there, clean up around there. The idea is to create what he was talking about, a defensible space, get that fuel out from away from the buildings. The police department we've done several years ago. That's kind of what we're looking at again for this year is going back around the police department because all the storms and everything create that fuel on the ground. Planer Hill project a few years ago. I don't know if you guys remember seeing us up there cleaning with our chainsaws and burning some brush, and that whole street side up there is so much nicer now. It's just better to look at, and it's a lot safer as far as fuel on the ground and that fuel load goes.
So as far as information that goes for citizens, they can get that at the fire department?
Yes, ma'am.
And are there any annual events that are held, like,
When we do the cleanup annually, we'll have information on us when we do that. We try to get out in the public. We go to the county fair, and we'll usually have a booth out there to set up and hand out information for that. And we've got tons of information there at the fire department. We've got pamphlets that we print them. That's what we use a lot of that grant money for, is to buy some tools and stuff, but then to go back and we got to get more information out there to people. And every time I give a burn permit, or somebody comes into the department to ask a question, anything, hey, take this with you. Learn about your own house, your own home, and how to make that a little bit safer.
and is it online too?
Pardon me?
Is it online?
Yes, ma'am. There's a lot of information online. Just type in the search engine, Firewise.
Are y'all planning on any type of public activity, like you were talking about fish fry or something, to distribute that on out?
Yeah, where's that food?
I like that food. We love food.
Yeah, you did. Not as of right now. We're planning our project right now, which is going to be to clean up the area around the police department and get some man hours going towards that. So as far as public activity goes, we're going to wait and see how the spring and summer season kind of carries on and get something going like that for the public. Everybody wants to know about the fish fry now.
I'd rather have ribs.
Any other questions, Firewise, for us, Forestry Commission? Fires are pretty good right now. We've had a really wet year, as most of y'all know, so the fire danger has not been that bad, so we've been fortunate and blessed on that. Fairly past several years, since 2012, really hadn't had a major fire season, so it's been pretty good. And this program, Shane's talking about the fuel loading, that's another thing. You get a lot of folks that move in the state of Arkansas that come from other states that may not know that we have wildfires, so keeping our fuel loading down and keeping people aware of fires, and more people are beginning to become aware of all that. So it is making it better for us and less fires. So the program's working. It's all going really good. So thanks for all the helps from all the citizens here in Eureka Springs, for sure.
No other questions? Thank you very much. We
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
you
y'all very
coming
much for your time.
and
Appreciate
making
y'all.
the presentation. That brings us to public comments.
Ferguson Stewart, 7 Harvey Road, Eureka Springs. Hey, I'm here to do a couple things, but Damon's not here, which I was thought he'd be here. Anyway, so tomorrow, we're going to have the trade show, tourism trade show. The Chamber of Commerce is presenting that, and so between 1 and 5 p.m. For the trade show, and the season kickoff 5 to 7 p.m. So hope everybody can be to that. So I'm just pseudo for the Chamber. The other thing is we got a brand new business in town. Just opened up the old hot spot. Okay, go-karts are back in season. Putt-putt golf. So I'm just here to help that business get started. Okay. Butch always says I'm kind of the unofficial ambassador, so that's what I'm doing. We've got a new business. We need to, as a community, come together and invite them in and thank them for coming to Eureka. So I've got copies of their pamphlet. I'll put it up here and you guys can pick one up. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Ferguson.
Can we get there? No, maybe now.
Bob Jasinski, 46 Hillside. For the umpteenth time, Eureka needs wall art. There's yet another newspaper article. This one is both front and back, all about wall art. Every community in the United States is doing it, especially tourist communities. I don't know what the problem is with Eureka. I think maybe you got to revisit some of your ordinances here that have to do with the signage and with the existing advertising, which is quickly fading away from our buildings here. All right, there was a statement made last week that I disagree with, and that has to do with the application of the American with Disabilities Act to a tenant. In other words, is the city responsible for the ADA since they're renting space from the county, I believe it is. As I understand the American Disabilities Act, it applies both to the landlord and the tenant. And the person who's injured or has a beef can sue either one or both. The other thing is, there was some talk about eliminating public comment by restricting or eliminating written comments. Well, I think you should wait until the city is fully compliant with the American with Disabilities Act before you start limiting people writing in letters. If somebody cannot physically attend the meetings, that's the only means of directly communicating and creating a record at a public meeting. So I believe that that is a possibility of a lawsuit. I remember you were threatened with a lawsuit before, and I don't believe this facility is compliant with the American with Disabilities Act. And taking the American with Disabilities Act a little bit further, because I believe the city is almost an American with Disabilities Act disaster area because of the topography here, which is very hilly and steep. It really, you're trying to correct the sidewalks, but the sidewalks I don't think come under the American with Disabilities Act, but unless it's a commercial sidewalk or unless it's a government sidewalk, something open to the public. So the thing is, why don't we look at requiring that all businesses in the city comply with the American with Disabilities Act, especially lodging. The law is that any lodging facility that has more than 5 units, and the owner, more than 5 units must comply with the American with Disabilities Act. If there's 5 or less units, they must comply with the American with Disabilities Act unless the owner or the owner actually resides on there. Not a manager, the owner must reside if you have 5 or less units. And I think you might consider looking at that, since you are doing a lot of work with the American with Disabilities Act. Thank you very much.
That's it? All right. That concludes the public comments. So our first order of business is ordinance addressing animals and hot cars with Ms. Greene and Ms. Harman. I think we have an ordinance in front of us to consider. Get a motion?
Motion to discuss.
Okay. All right. Motion and second to discuss. You want to start off, Ms. Greene?
Thank you, Tim. This is exactly pretty much what I wanted. I think it's a good ordinance, and I want to thank you.
That's it?
Ms. Schneider?
Okay, well, I've got questions then. Our guys already do a really, really good job, and I did verify that, because our people don't allow any of this to ever happen. Under Section 1B, the cold temperatures, okay, it says outside temperature is 30 degrees or less, and the interior is not provided with heated air to maintain an internal temperature of at least 30. What if they have a good pile of blankets, like a little nest of blankets? A lot of people do that. Is that acceptable, and should we be adding that, Tim? Hello?
You can add what you want to it. I don't think this is... It's going to be a difficult enforcement already for the officers.
That'll take me to my second question. But is that something that should be considered if they have like blankets and stuff inside? That would be on their own discretion?
Well, how much good blankets do probably has somewhat to do with what type of animal is in there, what type of, this ordinance refers to animals. So if you had a cold-blooded animal in there, a blanket won't really do any good for it because it can't generate its own heat.
Then do we need to specify animal type?
Well, if we do, we're going to end up with a book rather than an ordinance.
So even though this is basically got started in regards to dogs, if we merely said dogs, that would cause a problem?
Well, in Eureka Springs, we have a lot of animals that come to town that aren't necessarily canines.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to my second question, and then you can just deal with it all. The violation of this ordinance shall result in assessment of court costs and the fine stuff, yada, yada. Okay. If, as has happened in front of my shop years ago, there is an animal in one of these cars, whether it's hot or cold as a material. At the time, it was very hot. The owner couldn't be located. So the dog was stuck in this car, and hot or cold, it's not going to matter. It's stuck in this car because they don't know where the owner is. I mean, we called cops and they came, but there wasn't anything they could do short of breaking into the car. So the question I have is, if the owner is not locatable, do the police have the right to remove the animal and take it to the police kennel, which would be proper weatherization and temperature stuff?
It's my understanding that at least the last chief, and I believe this current chief agrees, and I don't mean to speak for him if he doesn't agree, but it was my understanding that in the past, the officers have believed that they have that ability to do that if the animal appears to be in
Dire
distress.
Do we need to add that in writing in any place in here?
Again, if we add everything to cover every contingency, we're going to end up with a book.
So it would be...
That's the problem that we've had with drafting this. I looked at it, I've looked at other people's, and I don't know that there's a perfect way to draft this.
Should we have just one
This is
simple...
as close as we're going to get, I think.
Should we have just one simple clause that says discretion will be used, proper discretion will be used, and that would cover everything?
Officers have, and they're very well aware of it by state law, discretion in how they enforce.
So we don't have to word it because it's already worded somewhere?
And they should be well aware
Okay.
as part of their training when discretion comes into being.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
I just think, going back to what Nikki is saying, would be whether or not we have anything on the books regarding that, and/or if it is a state, if it was a state law that they have the discretion to do that, then, all we have to do is just state that particular code, correct? Because it would just be a reference on there. We wouldn't have to elaborate any more than that.
The actual discretion clause doesn't specify to something this of an issue. It's an officer discretion is a general principle of police work and has been recognized by the courts repeatedly for that purpose, to give officers discretion. And it's as broad as this: if the officer pulls you over on the side of the road and you're doing 10 over the speed limit, the officer is not bound by law to write you a ticket.
Right.
He can or she can discuss the matter with you and determine that a warning is sufficient, or a ticket, or whatever is necessary. And the discretion is broad by development in the ability of the officer to take care of matters. Partly because if we tried to put down every situation every officer comes into contact with every day, we wouldn't end up with a book, we would end up with a library.
Okay, so how I should have asked you is, as of right now, can you say that there is or isn't any code specifically on the state books that relate to an animal in a vehicle based on whether or not it's cold or hot?
There are statutes on the books, whether they specifically talk about animals in cars. No, I don't believe there is. There is a statute, though, about maltreatment of animals. There are several various crimes that are committed by the way you treat your animal, if you treat your animal in such a manner that it puts it in distress or harm. And many of those, I think, would give the officer, in general, the ability to protect. They've been used in other situations to raid boarding houses for animals, for kennels where they believe that the conditions are improper, not necessarily here in EUREKA, but across statewide. And they've been used even on various farms to alleviate stress on farm animals, horses, cows, all kinds of animals.
Anyone else? Mr. McClung?
I've had a few dogs, and the dogs I've had have been outside dogs, and they've been dog houses and on a chain, and in the wintertime, the summertime. And so if a dog in a vehicle, if the wind is blocked and they've got a warm place to lay, I mean, most generally they're fine. You know, they're okay. Now there are some breeds of dogs that I'm sure that are not as equipped like the dogs I've had, but I've had labs and spaniels and they've stayed outside and been just fine. I don't think they love me any less for the conditions that they had. You know, they had good dog houses and they've been in vehicles and left in plenty cold weather and was never a problem. And so I think you got to be real careful. I mean, I understand the heat one more than I do the cold. And but there again, it's, you know, how do you draw the line? I don't know. I mean, you're going to take them out of that car and take them out to the police department and put them in a pen there that's going to be 90 or 100 degrees too. So you're not putting them in an air-conditioned room.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You got to be real careful.
Mrs. McGrane?
Terry, with no disrespect, if you put an animal or a child or a person in a car that's overheated, it's going to hurt them. And that's what this ordinance is. I don't disagree with you on the cold. That's kind of a thing. I think that this ordinance at least gives our police department some teeth where they really can go in. I know Fayetteville has this ordinance, and they use it. David Mitchell can tell you he had his mom at the doctor's, and he was going out and checking his animals, but they caught him and ticketed him. It was too warm in the car. So it's something, I asked for this because a lot of citizens asked me to do this. And for me, it at least gives our police and our animal control officer some teeth to be able to do things. I think Tim wrote a good ordinance. It's, you know, it's kind of broad, but I just think it gives us the teeth that we need.
Ms. Schneider?
Okay, my only other question is, why is this basically a separate ordinance? We are still working on updating, we're still working on updating the present animal thing, which we've been working on since, what, August? Yeah. This should just be, I think, just an additional paragraph, Tim, or not paragraph, section.
Well, this has been pending for a long time, as has some of the other things. Is a separate one here for you to look at tonight, because it was my understanding the council wanted to get this one on, potentially on the books before we get to the heat of summer. And the others are still being looked at and possibly going to be revised, but they aren't as far along as this is.
What do we have to do to get them far along so this could all be done at once? I thought everything else had been approved and we just had to put it together.
Are you talking about the swine or?
Yeah, all of it. We had the 100-foot thing.
They're most likely going to come out in separate ones anyway.
Okay, so it's better to have each one as a separate unit rather than have all 3 or 4, whatever it is now, as one complete rewrite?
Even though this ordinance contains a saving paragraph that says that if a court of competent jurisdiction finds that part of it is improper, the rest of it will stand, it's better not to incorporate more things usually than you, in case a court does strike part of it.
Okay, so I think we already approved the others, so what do we need to do then?
Let's keep it on this ordinance right here. That's what the question is.
1, 2, 3
He answered your question, I'm sorry. Mr. McClung?
Just so you know up front, I'm not for this the way it's written with the you know, the upper temperatures. I'm fine with that, but I'm not the low.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to speak for the Fayetteville Police Department, but I can report what I heard from them when I contacted them 7 or 8 months ago. Maybe Tim can explain this. They said that they could not pass an ordinance with the high temperature in it, that it would not be legal unless it had a low temperature in it also. That's what I was told.
I have no explanation for that. I do know that the basis of this ordinance is the Fayetteville ordinance. But as far as why it couldn't have both or one, I don't know what their basis for saying that is. Other than it does clearly, in their opinion, not only address dogs, but it addresses all animals. And I don't know if that has something to do with it, because lots of other animals have susceptibility to cold that they don't have to heat. But I don't know if that had anything that went into it or not.
Mr. McClung?
Then, Mr. Weaver, doesn't the cruelty to the animals, the regulations that the state has, didn't that fall into play there somewhere? I mean, that's your policeman's discretion. If he sees something like that is, if somebody's got a seal in the back seat of a car and it doesn't need to be there, I mean, they have the right to, because it's cruelty to animals, that they can, that comes into play under state statute. I mean, and that really, the gist of it, if something like that, they see something that's really out of line, they've got something to fall onto anyway. Yes or no?
Well, the purpose generally of an ordinance is to give a less aggressive response to an issue than would, say, a state statute. A state statute establishes 2 levels of offense, both of which are higher than an ordinance violation. A state statute will either create a felony or will create a misdemeanor, where a city ordinance creates an ordinance violation. Even state law, in the way it assesses costs, a state ordinance violation is a $50 court cost. A felony was $150, and a misdemeanor runs from, depending on where and type of misdemeanor, $75 to $125. So there's even in the way the court addresses it, is partly what this would be, is kind of so the officer doesn't have to use his maximum weapon against somebody by hitting them with a cruelty to animals, which in this state now is a felony, what would give them a lower position. Now, whether we want to do that, a lot of cities don't have an ordinance similar to this. Some do. A fair number do. But that is what this council is here for, is to make the decision. Do we give the officer more discretion by giving him another potential tool to use rather than pulling out a felony or an A-class misdemeanor? Can he go to an ordinance, which is a lower violation?
Ms. Harman?
The only other question I have on this is multiple offenses. There's nothing that addresses that. Would that be applicable towards something else within our code? Or would that be as far as fines and or removal of the animal if it were multiple, if someone committed multiple?
In the ordinance, Section 2 addresses that if there are multiple animals within one car,
correct,
that they would be multiple offenses. As far as a increased violation punishment, that's what typically courts use, the variation in fines, where here we have a fine that starts at $50 and a maximum of $500. A court could punish a first offense relatively minor and then follow up if there's a second violation with a higher fine. and courts do track whether an individual usually has the same offense multiple times. In addition to that, our code already has a provision in regard to maltreatment of animals. I'd have to go back and look at it. It's been a few months since I looked at it, but I believe it forbids the ownership of animals after a certain number of violations of the animal code. I believe it's 3.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. It was something like 3 or 4. So that would then kick in based on...
I think that would probably kick in based on this.
Okay.
It may be something that, if you pass this from its first reading, we may want to look at to make sure before we finalize it, but because, as I said, it's been a few months since I did look at that.
Okay.
But I think it would.
Anybody else? Ms. Greene?
Okay. I move to give the ordinance a number and read it.
I'll second.
All right, have a motion to give a number and read it. Discussion? All right. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved.
The ordinance number will be 2278. An ordinance amending the Eureka Springs Municipal Code to prohibit animal suffering. Whereas the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs has determined that transporting and confining animals in hot and or cold vehicles may be harmful to their health and welfare, and whereas the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs has determined that the welfare of animals subjected to extreme temperatures could cause unnecessary suffering and or death to said animals so exposed, and whereas the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs has determined that restricting the containing of animals within extreme temperatures is the most efficient way to safeguard animal welfare. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Section 1. The Eureka Springs Municipal Code is hereby amended to add the following. It shall be a violation of city law to either confine A, an animal in an unattended, enclosed vehicle where the outside temperature is 70 degrees Fahrenheit or greater, and the interior of the vehicle is not provided with conditioned air or adequate ventilation to maintain an internal temperature of 100 degrees Fahrenheit or less. Or B, an animal in an unattended vehicle where the outside temperature is 30 degrees Fahrenheit or less, and the interior of the vehicle is not provided with heated air to maintain an internal temperature of at least 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Section 2. Violation of this ordinance shall result in assessment of court costs and a fine of not less than $50 and not more than $500 for each violation. Multiple animals so confined as to violate this ordinance shall constitute multiple offenses. Section 3. Provisions of this ordinance are hereby declared to be separable, and if any provision shall for any reason be held illegal or invalid, such holding shall not affect the validity of the remainder of this ordinance. Section 4. All ordinances and resolutions or parts thereof in conflict herewith are hereby repealed to the extent of such conflict.
Ms. Greene?
I move to approve the first reading.
Second.
Okay. Motion to approve, Ms. Greene. Ms. Harman seconded. Any further comments? Discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
5-1. Okay. That brings us up to our next item for discussion on codes, waiving fees, and the council discretion. A motion to discuss.
I move to
are we not doing
discuss.
sidewalks?
I'm sorry. The sidewalk ordinance, Mr. Weaver is still working with the Historic District Commission, so we're going to defer that until a later date, hopefully next week. I apologize for not getting that in the agenda. So, coming back up to the discussion of codes. Get a motion to discuss?
To discuss.
All right, Mr. Thomas.
Second.
All right. Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, when I went through this, trying to find out, what we needed to adjust to deal with situations like Echo Village, what I realized, and I'm including myself in this, I'm not, exempting myself, but that meeting, the city attorney was not there, and we did not have the ordinance in front of us, and I think we made a couple of serious mistakes. The ordinance does not, Dr. Bell made the statement that the ordinance allows for hospitals, schools, and organizations like ours, that's what he said, to be exempted or whatever, and that's not true. The ordinance speaks to public institutions like schools and hospitals, and of course Echo Village is not a public institution. So really they're not covered by any exemptions in the ordinance. The other thing is that the tap fee, and I'll ask Mr. Weaver, but the way I read the ordinance, the tap fee is $300 per tap, and there's no appealing that, there's no adjustment of that. It's the capacity fee that can be adjusted. And I think what we were discussing last week was waiving that tap fee, the $2,400 tap fee. And I don't think the ordinance provides for that. What the ordinance provides for is for the Echo Village to appeal the capacity fee that Bobby Ray gave us. And that's what, we could have waived the capacity fee, but there's no standard for waiving it. It would have just been doing it for Echo Village, and then we would have been back in that same crunch again. If you want to add something that would cover a charitable institution, we could have to talk about adding that.
Mr. McClung?
See, that's been too long ago, and I don't recall it well, but it seems like they were doing it under one tap fee. They're not tapping them individually.
They were charged 8 tap fees, $2,400, and they wanted it reduced to $300, and that's what we did.
Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that was what, weren't there 2 of them they were trying to do?
Yeah,
8 houses.
Ms. Harman?
Just going back to what Bob is saying, so, and thank you for getting all that information, but the question is because it doesn't allow us to do that, does that mean that is negated?
That's
our
Mr.
decision,
Weaver's.
or our vote, is it null and void?
At this point, I would have to go back and look at it, but yes, it very possibly is.
I think, Mr. Weaver, the whole discussion was about reducing the tap fee, but it ended up with the motion just being to reduce their payment to $6,700. It didn't specify what it was, although we were all thinking tap fee. We saved ourselves, I guess.
The motion was, I believe, and Madam Clerk would have to verify that, but it was a reduction in cost. I don't think...
To $6,700. We didn't specify.
Was it for tap fees specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we specified.
Yeah. So, I think we were okay with that. But you're right, because I think that's what, we're not allowed to do that, the other one. And I think the other discussion was having them come back and talk to us about water usage and seeing if that could be reduced later on. Mm-hmm. I think that's what the comments was. Because at this point, we don't have any method of judging from what Dwayne was saying, if I remember correctly.
Right. Well, and at this point, we came in, somebody brought in an $8,000 bill, and we reduced it to $6,700 for no reason, with no justification. Other than that's a very nice charitable organization.
Any further discussion? Ms. Greene?
I'm totally confused, and I thought I had the papers here, and I don't. Okay, I was the one who had suggested that we lower or not count whatever that one amount as the city's part of this endeavor of these homes. That's all I remember doing, and I don't even remember if it was approved or not. But that, I think just the one thing was not the other, because I want to say it was that, what you're talking about. But that was the only reason, just so the city would do a nice, active, charitable type thing for this one city endeavor. Or, people are going to live in the city, therefore. That's all I remember. And I can't find my papers. I thought I had them. Then you're saying we can't do that.
Can't reduce the tap fee. But
We can't forego it the one time is my question.
that'd be Mr. Weaver's.
Well, I thought that's what you researched.
It's
The ordinance
capacity
doesn't
fee.
allow it.
Yeah. Ms. Harman, did you
I
have
like
a
the
question?
paperwork that we did show had it divided out into what they were asking specifically.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
It did, but we didn't say this goes specific to.
when we actually approved and voted.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other comments? Mr. McClung?
I suggest that we all go back and review the video and bring it up next time if we feel that there's a need to. It sounds like there is. Kind of nice to know what we can and can't do.
Sounds like a good idea.
All right. Anything else? We're moving on to update on North Street property. Motion to discuss.
So moved.
Second.
All right. I talked to the appraiser. I think the cost for getting it appraised was roughly around $250. And he's supposed to be able to, he hadn't gotten to it yet, but when I talked to him, I said I should get it this week. So hopefully we'll get it and have something in your mailbox soon on there.
Okay.
Any comments or questions on that?
Thank you.
All right. The next item. Yes, Ms. Harman?
Nope. I'm on the next item.
No, well, I have a comment on that.
Okay.
How soon can we put it up for sale?
Well, I would suggest that we wait and see what the appraisal and everything is, and there's some other information too that's coming down.
We can take any offer or refuse any offer. I don't see why we need to wait on an appraisal. It doesn't make any sense.
We might want to keep it.
All right. Anything else? Next item is, I put this on here, the procedural item on public comments, letters. There were several council members talked about this because it is a procedural item that the council has the ability to decide how they want to handle that. There was a comment in public comments about the ADA people not being able to attend and submitting letters. I think that could always be justified in a letter if they noted that. But I think because of the comments that I heard, I thought this should be a good, needed to be brought up to the council for their consideration. So, Ms. Harman?
I agree with you on people who have disabilities, or in some cases, you could maybe not have a disability, but you could maybe be in the hospital, or there are absentee owners on some of these properties here in Eureka Springs. So to my knowledge, I don't think that we see those in droves as far as letters coming in on any of the commissions. But I do think it is something that should still be available to the citizens because there are circumstances that may come up that they wouldn't be able to attend. So kind of similar to maybe the absentee ballots, that you could turn those in. Something may happen with a car, then you couldn't get to the meeting, and you would miss that opportunity. So I really do think that we should keep the ability for these letters to come in.
I think, don't mean to interrupt, but I think the thing is these will still be distributed. It's just that they won't be read at public comments. All the council members, if they come in, all the council will still receive them for their packet, but they wouldn't be noted and read at the city council
and
meetings.
they wouldn't be part of the minutes, correct?
They can always be attached as submitted, not necessarily read.
Okay, so would they still be a part of the minutes of that meeting?
Sure. I don't see why not, Mr. Weaver.
Well,
What's your feelings?
Mr. Jasinski's point about them being unavailable would also make them unavailable if they were attached to someone who was relying only on what we're broadcasting. If they could not read, attaching them would not serve the purpose. So if we're going to deal with them, we probably need that they be read, but we probably need to create restrictions so that they do not become a burden necessarily upon the meeting. We have a 3-minute restriction on how long someone can speak at the mic. There needs to be some kind of restriction on how long these letters can be. Otherwise, people will be sending in and they will complain that whoever is reading too slow and therefore not completing their letter in the 3-minute time period potentially. So if we put in a certain number of word limitation or something to restrict them to so that they're also manageable as we do the 3 minutes, we're probably better off if we're going to continue having comments in period to have the ability for somebody, as the councilman said a moment ago, if they're in the hospital, they may not be ADA necessary, but if they want to get their comments out, it's probably behooves the city to allow them to have that opportunity, but otherwise, eventually someone is going to complain to a court.
Is there any reason in law that requires us to have them? I mean, we don't have necessarily have to have public comments.
We do not have to have public comments the way I understand it from Arkansas state law.
Okay.
We can completely cut off that avenue of people coming to address the other citizens or the council, which is supposed to be toward the council, but in the way we allow it to go out over the air, it is actually broadcast to the general population.
Okay. Ms. Schneider?
No offense, Bob. Oh, he left, but no offense when you watch. We are compliant. We have wheelchair accessibility. We have hearing accessibility. Blind people can get anywhere, so that's not the problem. Over the years...
Could I clarify real quickly, we're not speaking to this Bob?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Bob Jasinski. I'm sorry. Yeah, and he was sitting right there.
Right.
Over the years, as at least 3 of us here know for decades, the problem in people stating at the microphone or whatever, ever since we started public comment and broadcasting and everything, has been jobs. Our people work their butts off during the season. They do not have time to come to council meetings. When there is something going on that they want to voice an opinion about, they write a letter. If they, in the early days, not so much, but definitely now, they will email copies, whatever, to the council, to the mayor, to everybody involved. But it's not the same thing as being able to stand at the microphone and state your opinion so all residents in the city can hear. That is the point. Our number 1 goal, don't forget this, is the people. We represent the people. Ergo, they have something to say. We should say it for them when they can't make it. And if you want to put a 3-minute limit on reading a letter too, that's fine. That's not a problem. But if they can't make it for any reason, it is our duty in representing them to read that letter for them, whether we like it or not. It doesn't matter. It's that simple. That's the people's thoughts, feelings, desires. They want the whole town to know, ergo, we read it. It's that simple.
Mr. Thomas?
Having a procedural rule that council people don't read letters would not preclude somebody having a friend come in and read it for them during public comments, correct? Well, I mean, that solves the problem.
A representative can do it, we can do it, but as a councilman, if they request us, it should be us, they can have it, we can have a person sit here who's willing to read all these letters. It doesn't matter. It doesn't happen that often, but when it does, we need to be reading them, as in we meaning someone, representative or us.
Mr. McClung?
I think if you open up that can of worms, you're going to have every Tom, Dick, and Harry have the opportunity to send an email to City Hall expecting it to get read, and I don't think that's the way to do it. I think that if they want to send the mayor a letter about something, and they can do that, if he sees it needs attention, then he can address it to us. If they don't get what they want, they have the avenue of the newspaper and a letter to the editor, and if that doesn't arouse the interest, then maybe it's not worth bringing here. So, I just don't think we need to, I don't want to clutter up with reading letters to Ann Landers or anybody else as far as that goes. It just...
I like Ann Landers.
Well, I do too. Her sister is great too, but that's, just that, I just don't think it's a good policy.
Okay, you're on your third time, Ms. Schneider,
On this issue?
on this issue.
Okay. Doesn't matter. Whether we read it for 3 minutes or they speak for 3 minutes, it's going out there. And of course, they have to be pertinent. It can't be from Ann Landers. No, I'm sorry, we're not going to bother with that. But point being, it's either them reading it or us reading. Who cares? It's 3 minutes.
Mr. Thomas?
I'd just like to ask Mr. Weaver, if somebody comes in and says, I want to read a letter, during public comments, and says, I want to read a letter from my friend Daisy, we couldn't stop that person.
That's fine. That's fine.
Oh, okay,
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about...
One of us read.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree with that, yeah.
Doesn't matter.
All right, do I hear a motion? Do y'all want to change the procedures on letters?
Yeah, could you explain to me what exactly a procedural rule is?
Well, at the very beginning, we set times on how long they can speak.
Right.
So I think what we're doing is elaborating on that time
Say
limit.
that council can't read letters.
Council can't read letters.
No, wait. Now state the whole thing. What are we voting on?
Well, we're getting ready to find out, Ms. Schneider.
I move that we establish a rule that council people cannot read letters from the general public during the meetings.
Second.
All right, Ms. Schneider.
Unless we appoint someone to be here to take care of those letters, we are totally disregarding our duty to our people. So if you don't want us council people read it, fine. You get somebody down here who will sit here at every meeting until that part is over in case there is a letter. Otherwise, you're slapping our people right in the face.
Ms. Harman?
I actually have to agree with Mickey. I think it is they deserve to have their letter read. And I'll volunteer to read them all because I just feel like they have that right, that we should read them. Now, regardless of whether or not, who that person is, I don't have an issue with reading those. So I'm willing to read every single one if nobody else wants to do it. But I still think it has to be read. And outside of having somebody here on a regular basis who is assigned to read letters, I think it is up to the city council or someone on city council to do that. So, because we could have no one here, and that letter, based on whatever that issue is, might be relevant to a particular issue that we're discussing. So, at that particular time. So,
Mr. Meyer?
Well, at any rate, it should be held to the 3-minute rule that anybody who comes here in person to speak. And we've had letters that went on, and we need to put the timer on it. And okay, so whoever's reading it might read slower than the person who wrote the letter thought they should be reading it, but my goodness, that's too big a can of worms there.
Terry reads really fast. Just say it.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, let's make Terry do it.
Any further discussion? I think, Madam Clerk, would you reread the motion for me, please?
Mr. Thomas moved to establish a rule that council people cannot read letters.
Okay. We have a second on that?
Yes, Mr. McClung.
Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hello?
I guess we need a roll call.
I like that.
How about
Okay.
opposed? No?
Learn a memento.
We're going to do a roll call.
Ms. Schneider.
No.
Ms. Harman.
No.
Mr. McClung.
Yes.
Ms. Greene.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
Yes.
4-2.
Okay. All right, so moved. All right. That brings us up to our first quarter financial reports.
For the first quarter of 2019, we have a printout of receipts that came into the city, the check register, payroll, and earlier this evening, you saw the comparative bank balances and summary of long-term liabilities. You're welcome to come and look more closely if you'd like.
Okay, that brings us, I think, down to agenda settings. Mr. Thomas?
Discussion of the city's most recent master plan.
Second.
Would you like to clarify that a little bit?
If there one, I want to know. It's so complicated. I don't know if there is one. But
The vision plan would be, as far as I know, is what we're still operating off of,
okay, then I'd like
from the Wittenberg vision plan.
discussion of the
Can
vision
you
plan.
elaborate a little bit what you want to discuss or how you want to handle that?
Well, I can. We're not
But
really
I mean,
supposed to
no,
do
I mean, it's an agenda item. Is it an agenda or should it be a workshop? Because that can be a broad topic. That's the only reason I'm asking.
All I want to do is see is it still current? If it's current, we're in good shape. But if it's not current, we would need to discuss who's responsible for updating it.
Maybe what we need to have is a planning commission come in and make a report then.
Okay, that's great.
Because, I mean, the planning commission are the ones who are deals with the vision plan
Right.
and master plan. Okay. So, all right.
And they're going to report on the vision plan.
I will ask them to.
Okay, great.
Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Schneider?
Okay, a couple of them. I'm not sure how we're doing this. Do we need to add a final discussion of the previous animal law changes so we can actually get them into ordinance form, Tim?
Might be beneficial.
Okay, then
I'll second that.
So we're adding discussion of the previous changes that we've discussed. And the second one is a discussion to add a reader availability, or let Susan and I do the reading of the letters. That would not be the council, that would be either one of us volunteers, or that we appoint someone to be here to read.
Letters.
Yes, to read letters, so that letters can be read.
Okay.
That's a long agenda.
A discussion to include appointing someone, be it one of us or an outside. I'm rewording for her.
Mr. Mayor, we just voted to not read letters.
Right, and I'm saying we need to appoint someone then.
Okay. We're discussion on appointing someone to read letters,
There you
period.
go.
Okay, we got them there. Somebody want to second that?
I'll second it.
All right. Ms. Harman?
I just have a question about the previous animal changes. These are things that were discussed over the past 6 months that were not actually finished.
Right, they never got finalized.
This is agenda
And
setting.
nothing's been read into it. We don't have an ordinance.
You got an agenda item?
Sorry. I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure I understood what it was.
All right. We can talk about it later.
Okay.
Unless you have an agenda item.
Nope.
All right, Mr. Meyer?
Streets projects, could we have Dwayne here to talk
Sure.
about the streets projects? We
Yeah.
got a list of them last meeting, and we didn't get a chance to talk about them.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Anybody else?
I don't think, it may or may not be an agenda item, you can tell me, but what is the status of Uber in town?
I have no idea.
They're all over the place.
Tim knows.
Tim knows. I don't know whether that's an agenda item or not. We can talk about it later afterwards. We can talk about that. Unless there's something the council needs to discuss on them.
I'm just curious. I didn't know if
Okay.
it needs to be an item or not. I mean, I've heard that the Uber drivers are in town, so, and I think if I remember from the past that...
Are we putting it on the agenda?
Well, I mean, no, I don't guess
Well,
I
I
am.
would second it because I want to hear Mr. Weaver's opinion.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, then yes, I will.
So what's the agenda item?
Uber,
Status?
discussion of Ubers.
Uber and
Please let
Lyft.
Terry say the agenda item.
A discussion on Uber.
And let's,
And Lyft. They're both-
Uber and Lyft, and the status of Uber and Lyft in Eureka Springs.
Thank you.
All right. Council comments. Mr. Thomas?
So thank you.
Ms. Greene?
Glad to be here.
Ms. Schneider?
Just want to thank the powers that be that my husband is still alive after his little house accident this weekend. And I hope everybody else had a happy Easter.
Ms. Harman? Mr. Meyer?
Oh, beautiful springtime, folks.
I have to agree with Harry, it's a beautiful springtime, and also, I'm just curious, do we need to have the same kind of an ordinance for children in vehicles too?
Yes.
Do we need that as well? I mean, that's a legitimate question, I guess.
State law
You know,
covers it.
the state law covers pets too, so.
True.
All
Just
right.
curious.
All right, as far as events and coming up in Eureka, this is beginning to be a busy month. The season is starting to swing into action, as y'all can tell by the activity in and around the town. I want you to check out what is going on with Earth Celebration. There's really too many things going on for the next week, from Friday, April 19th through Sunday, the 28th. But these brochures are in windows or in shops throughout town. It's Earth Day events and everything. It's being held up at the heart of Many Ways, which is at the top of Mountain Street. And for many of you all know, or the locals, it's the old Christian Science Church. But we have this, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, the Sufi Healing Circle, Geological Walks, concerts by Hugh Dost and John Tuhawks, and many other things that are benefiting the heart of Many Ways in the maintenance of their building up on Mountain Street. So again, look around for posters for this coming up. Also, tomorrow, I believe, it's that the 23rd, the Tourism Trade Show, 1 to 5, and the season kickoff from 5 to 7 at the Convention Center. On the 24th, we have the Spring Fling Bike Rally. That's all day long at the Cat House. 26th through 27th, and this is a favorite for everyone, yards and yards and yards of yard sales. All day long, throughout Saturday and Sunday, all over town, and probably going outside of town also. Also, that same weekend on the 26th and 27th, it's Carving in the Ozarks, which will be all day long up at Victorian Inn. If you've never been up there, it's incredible what those guys can do with a chainsaw. Also, that Saturday, Drumming in the Park, starting at 5 to 7 in the Basin Park. And then on the 27th is the Ozark Corral Spring Concert, 7:30 p.m. in the auditorium. We are going to be starting then in May, and this is, again, so many events going on. We have over 30 events in the next 2 weeks. And just a few of them are, the 3rd, we have Steve Earle and the Dukes at the Odd. Better check and see if there's still tickets available, because this is going to be real popular. And then on the 4th, that Saturday, is one of my favorite parades, the Artrageous Parade, starting at 2 o'clock. And this is going to be a real unique parade, so y'all need to come out and watch it. And then also on the 4th will be Jazz in the Park with Matson 2 from 5 to 7 in the Basin Park. And then on the 5th, this is a new one that we're having, and it should be quite a lot of fun, though. Cinco de Mayo, starting at 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the Basin Park. A lot of different events are going to be circling around that. And then on the 11th through the 12th, we'll have the Basin Art Fair all day long. And on the 11th, we'll have the second Saturday Gallery Stroll, 6 o'clock to 9 p.m. in the downtown. And then on the 12th, we have our annual John Two Hawks Mother's Day concert at 2 p.m. here in the auditorium. And that takes us out. Let's get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you all.